podcast not seen since the Age of Legends. This is the One Power Podcast. Welcome back, everyone, to episode 4. I am Greg.
And I'm Thorne.
And we welcome you back again tonight. So excited as always to be here. Privileged to talk to you all. Thorne, I know it's Tuesday, but how's your week been so far?
It's been okay. There's been a little bit of stress in a game community I'm part of. Game of Stones. It's a Wheel of Time based. It's a text-based Wheel of Time game. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of words. It is a lot of words. But we're about to get to the end of an age, and it's getting close to like the last battle, and I am a sub-leader for one of the clans. So I am just like, what's going on? What do I do?
Well, it's always that, you know, that you've heard that saying, you get promoted all the way up to where you're unqualified, and that would be as high as you go. That's probably what's happened with you. You're like, yeah, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I'm supposed to know what I'm supposed to do, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know why I was picked, but it happened. Hey. I think I'm doing an okay job. I'm trying to pretend to be a battle commander.
So everything you just said about that, apply it to me, but with my real world job. That's exactly where I'm at.
I technically wasn't qualified for my current position.
I mean, I'm qualified experience-wise. I'm a manager, but I definitely have days, especially recently, where I'm like, how to do, and I don't ask because I'm like super embarrassed. I'm just like, I'm just trying to figure it out. I'll just keep doing this until I get in trouble, and then when I get in trouble, it's like, oh my bad, nobody ever showed me. Well, get your crap together. Okay, cool, and then just go on with it.
You could just ask, and then you won't ever get in trouble.
No, because I'm supposed to already know some of these things. But to be fair, in my business, my line of work, things are changing constantly, so I might have a little bit of cover, but everything's going okay. They haven't, demoted me yet, so we'll see. But in any case, before we get into all the good content we have tonight, I just hit my thing here. I just want a quick reminder for everybody. We do have a special episode 5 coming up. That is the next episode from this one. And it will feature none other than Daniel Greene, one of our favorite content creators and Wheel of Time community contributors. He is pretty much a fixture on Twitter of Time. And if you have not watched any of his videos, he does cover more than Wheel of Time, but he is quite possibly one of the biggest Wheel of Time fans I've ever heard of, with the exception of maybe Sarah Nakamura and a couple of other content creators. But he puts out a lot of stuff, constantly putting out videos. If you don't know who he is, go check him out before next episode. You are in for a treat. We have a very special surprise topic lined up, so be ready for that. But please tune in episode 5 with Mr. Daniel Greene. It's going to be a great time. So with that being said, I think tonight we're going to go ahead and get started and get into everything. So Thorne, where are we at tonight?
So tonight we are going to do chapters 4 and 5 of The Eye of the World. If you have not read past chapter 5, then stop listening.
And seriously, stop listening, because chapter 5 is where it's at. I know a lot of people say that the beginning of the book is a hook, but I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Chapter 5, Winternight in Eye of the World, is the Wheel of Time hook, I believe.
That's the chapter I wanted, but I lost the dice roll.
You lost the dice roll. Sorry, but the universe said nay. So, with that being said, Thorne, I think you are up.
Alrighty. So, chapter 4 is The Gleeman. So, the Gleeman comes out of the inn looking very upset. He's a much older man, but still seems to be spry despite that. He wears a cloak with patches sewn all over it. Egwene is very excited to see him. Rand is amazed that the Gleeman has blue eyes and thinks that everyone he's ever seen had dark eyes. Apparently, the Coplans and the Congress teased him about having gray eyes until he punched a boy named Ewell Copland in the nose. Good job.
Very good.
He wonders if there's a place where no one had dark eyes, and wonders if Lan is from a place like that. The Gleeman is very disgruntled because he's been having basically a bad time. He was told that he could make it to the village before dark, but was not told that he would have to leave much earlier. And when he finally arrived in town, Master Alvier was upset about being woken up so late and never even told him that he was the mayor. When he came down, he was yelled at by Senbui and about what stories he should tell, and that a, quote, girl child yelled at him to get out and threatened him with a club. When Rand tells him that Nynaeve is the wisdom, he can't believe it, saying that she's too young and pretty to be foretelling weather and curing the sick. Yeah, I bet you can think what I think of that.
Easy.
The boys are basically like, oof, I hope he doesn't say that anywhere near her. Rand explains that the village council is trying to figure out what's going on in Ghealdan and whether they should be ready for trouble. The Gleeman dismisses this as old news and states that Podon Fane loves to carry bad news and compares him to a raven. Egwene defends Podon Fane, saying that he's always full of laughter and brings more good news than bad. Sorry, I had a little bit of chest gas there. The Gleeman gets distracted by how pretty Egwene is and asks her to be his assistant for his performance, and states that he always picks the prettiest girls he can find. Matt and Perrin thinks this is funny. Egwene says that she'd be happy to. The Gleeman introduces himself as Tom Marilyn. He says that he was once a court bard before he was a Gleeman. Matt asks Tom if he knows anything about Ghealdan, the False Dragon, or Aes Sedai. Tom states that he makes a point of never knowing too much about Aes Sedai. He also states that in War's Boy, fools kill other fools for foolish causes. Tom changes the subject by pointing out Rand's height and says that he's as tall as an Aiel man. Then he points out how big Perrin is and states that he is almost as big as an Ogier. Perrin jokes that he would have to stand on his own shoulders to be that big, and that they're just normal people, and not made-up creatures from stories. Tom says that they must be widely traveled to know what's made up. Perrin states how far they have been, and Matt brags about going to the dangerous places nearby. Egwene tells Matt that he's being foolish, and when she starts to mention Nynaeve, she becomes embarrassed because of what the Gleeman said about Nynaeve. Perrin asks what Rand's height and his size has to do with anything, and Tom said that later when they try to pick him up that they'll be unable to. Perrin states that he could lift him right now, but Tom insists on a larger audience. After looking at the people gathered, he decides to give a demonstration. He does some somersaulting and juggling and talks of the stories he could tell. Egwene asks him to tell about Len, who flew to the moon in the belly of an eagle made of fire, and his daughter Sayla walking among the stars. Rand thinks that she's just asking for a story about adventures to bother him. Tom claims that he has all stories and starts talking about the ones he knows to hype up the crowd. Suddenly he stops as Moraine appears. He says that she must not be from around Emmons Field. Ewan tells him that she's a lady, and Tom apologizes for any disrespect. So, changed his tune right there. Moraine again insists on not being called lady. Ewan tells Tom that Moraine collects stories, and Tom says that he thinks she'll like his stories, but he seems wary and displeased that she is there. Rand wonders what kind of stories are told in cities. Tom and Moraine kind of banter back and forth slightly, and then Moraine leaves with Lan on her heels. The villagers ask Tom to do more juggling, and Matt asks him to eat fire. At this moment, the village council and Nynaeve come out of the inn with Podon Fane. Tom makes a swift exit back to the inn. Senbui complains about money, and Bran Alvier says that he may be more trouble than he's worth. Nynaeve gets sassy and tells him that worrying about the Gleeman is better than worrying about a false dragon that is nowhere near them. Bran gets upset and tells Nynaeve to mind her business and that she shouldn't say the council lacks wits. Nynaeve says she overestimated them by half and leaves. Egwene follows her quickly. Sen starts making comments about how Nynaeve needs a husband and needs to learn respect. The mayor is done with his shit too and tells him to shut up. that he's proving Nynaeve right. That's actually what I wrote because that's exactly what that was the only way I could describe that. He goes back into the inn, the council leaves, and Rand goes to meet his father. Rand questions why the mayor is so mad, and Tam claims it's because he and the Wisdom Head a disagreement. The boys ask about the false dragon, and Tam says that Fane didn't know much more than he had already told, mostly about battles. Matt says that battles interest him. Tam says he doesn't care about battles and that he can ask Fane about them later. The council agreed that they were unlikely to see anything from the false dragon or the Aes Sedai because they're too much out of the way and the Two Rivers is boxed in. They basically have the Mountains of Mist in the west, the Mire in the east. Ooh, I hit my microphone. And the White River and the Forest of Shadows in the south. So they're pretty boxed in. You can't really go just straight through the Two Rivers. Tam says that they're going to be forming a patrol the day after tomorrow, just in case. That they would help any refugees and be ready to send away anyone who seems dangerous. Matt says that he wants to be a part of the watch, and Tam tells him to ask the mayor. Tam tells Rand that they're going home. Rand is surprised and says that he thought they were staying for Winternight. Tam says that they have stuff to do at the farm. Rand says that he wants to volunteer for the patrols as well, but Tam says that they're going now and they'll be back in time for festival in the morning. Matt gets excited thinking about everything they might see. Perrin says that he might join as well if Master Luhan doesn't need him at the forge. Rand reminds them of the man in the black cloak, and the others become embarrassed. Matt claims the watch will find him and that they'll tell the mayor when they volunteer for the patrols. Perrin subtly suggests that they find more reliable witnesses. Rand leaves to go to his father. Rand notices the stranger's horses and matches them in his head with the person. As they head to the farm, Rand asks why they questioned Fane when they could have just come to that conclusion without. Tam explains that when people see leaders take their concerns seriously, it helps to keep them from panicking. Tam asks if anyone besides Perrin saw the rider. Rand is shocked that his father believes the story and wants to go back, but Tam tells him that he waited on purpose. Rand asks him why he didn't believe before, and Tam said that he had to believe his own eyes, but now there are witnesses with similar stories they have to believe. Tam says that he wants to check the farm in case the cloaked rider is lurking around and that he would stay out there the next day too if it weren't for the festival. Rand feels relieved that he doesn't have to worry alone anymore and feels confident that he has the whole village at his back. And that's the end of chapter 4, The Gleeman.
Woo!
I was about to ask if you were there.
You did a much better job this time. You didn't have to stop for as many breaths.
Yeah, I just kind of... I thought this one was going to end up longer because it was more than 2 pages.
Mm-hmm. Dang.
Yeah, I wrote more than 2 pages, but I guess I got just in the zone.
I mean, that's a synopsis borderlining on like Cliff Notes.
Yeah, like I tried not to be too detailed, but I felt like everything was a little bit important that I had put in because I wrote the notes last night.
And you didn't even want to cover this chapter. You wanted me to do it because you want to talk about Winternight.
Yes, I want to talk about Winternight.
So
Winternight's a way better chapter. I don't want to introduce the Gleeman.
Oh, come on.
Goddamn Tom.
Come on. Tom Maryland's cool. And you know he's cool.
Sexism.
Okay, but that sexism's rampant in this world. Come on. I mean, you know.
Not that much.
I mean, small.
Well, we can't talk about things. We can't talk about certain things because they would be spoilers.
Yeah. Well,
all we know about is the Two Rivers.
I was just going to contrast that we know that this Gleeman has been around big cities, and now he's in a essentially, as he would probably view it, a backwoods town. So his comments, while not, I would say acceptable for us anyway, are not unexpected, I would think.
I don't know. No, I think that they're kind of unexpected because they have a whole women's circle.
Yeah, but I think that's more his comments. Remember, the comments were about Nynaeve being a young wisdom, not necessarily. Anyway, is this one of your highlights? Is this one of your chapter highlights?
No, I think I covered everything. If I thought it was important, I talked about it.
Oh, okay. So I guess we are talking about, just kind of drawing out the fact that Well, I'll put it to you like this. So, as you know, for those of you who may or may not remember, my wife has recently started reading the books, and she actually finished Eye of the World last night. And I remember when she read this chapter, she looked at me and she said, "I don't know about the Gleeman." And I said,
She's right.
"What do you mean?" And she said, "I don't know if I like him." I said, "Well, you just met him." She's like, "I know, but I've liked everyone I've just met. Don't know if I like him." I was like, "Okay, well, that's fair. You just met him, though, so give it some time." And of course, now she has changed her tune a little bit at the risk of,
Yeah, there's
yeah,
you can't talk about
yeah,
that
we
though
can't go much
because
further,
that's
right? Yeah, yeah, exactly. But needless to say, she's come around a little bit on the idea of Tom, and
but from what we know now, Tom is kind of a sexist jerk.
or at least he has come off that way in this introduction. So you know what they say about first
Yes.
impressions. You only get one chance to
True.
make a good
His
first impression.
first impression is basically saying that the wisdom, a woman who works with herbs and delivers babies and heals people, he called her a girl child, and then he said that she should be flirting with young men and not healing the sick.
But at the same time, though, and I completely understand and agree with his off-putting comments. But at the same time, doesn't the rest of Emmons Field, I say the rest, many others in Emmons Field, kind of feel the same way? Because that's the whole thing with Nynaeve is it's almost controversial that she's wisdom because she's so young. I actually said that to my wife the
That's
other night. She said, she was actually talking about something else in much further down in the first book that we cannot talk about yet at all because it is a big spoiler, but it has to do with Nynaeve's age. And then I made this. I told her, I said, well, she's not young, as in she's mid to close to late 20s. I think she's like mid
no,
20s.
she's early 20s.
I thought she was like 24,
She's
25.
23 or 24.
Because I thought she was 2 or 3 years older than Rand, and Rand was like 21, wasn't he?
Ranch 20. Uh on Winternight night he's 20.
Okay. So needless to say, she's
Rand
approaching middle 20s.
Rand yeah, Rand, Perrin, and Matt are all 20. Egwene is about 18.
Yeah, I knew Egwene was the youngest out of those five. The five being, the three boys and not even her. I knew Egwene was the
And I
youngest.
think, who is it? Ewan, who's the little boy who keeps popping up?
Yeah.
He's like 14.
Yeah. But needless to say, I referenced her. We referenced her age. They're talking about another event, and she asked that question. She's like, "How old is Nynaeve?" And I said something to the same effect of what we just discussed here a second ago. And then I said, because she brought up how they made a big deal in Emmons Field about how young she was to be wisdom. I said, we got to remember, wisdoms most of the time where it was almost like a matronly position, and it's a much older woman, but it seems to me like Nynaeve got this position on ability, not experience.
Yeah.
Because she was good at these things. She could listen to the wind. She could heal. She does do these different things, and that's why she became the natural pick to be wisdom. Whereas, a lot of the people in the town, though, aside from the women's circle, because as Tam Althor always points out, that's women's circle business. Everyone outside the women's circle, and I'll go ahead and say it, men are like, she's a mite young.
Actually, some women in the women's circle even talk about how young she is.
We'll see, there you go.
So the reason that Nynaeve seems a little bit aggressive at this point, because it took me a while to understand Nynaeve at the beginning of the books. Nynaeve is very aggressive because she has to basically bite onto her position and hold on to it like a rabid dog.
Well, she's got to prove herself.
She has to prove herself. She cannot show a moment of weakness or anything. She has to be strong. She has to be confident. She has to be able to get people to listen to her.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, if she doesn't work hard to do that all the time, then they're just going to push her aside, basically.
Right. And that becomes more and more evident the further into the book you get. Specifically this book, because I'm not going to say anything else about any books beyond this, but especially in this book, you can kind of gather that, especially from the way other people talk about her, whether it's for or against her. And then, of course, the way she's reacting. She's always, for example, you pointed out the part in this chapter where she basically insults the council, and then Bran.
She tells them that they don't have a full set of wits among them.
And then Bran kind of retorts and says, you don't need to say that. And then she's like, oh, well, I was off on my estimate by half. Meaning, she was saying that I said there's not
have even less.
Yeah, she's like, you guys don't have a whole set of wits among you, and it sounds to me like I've overestimated by half. So, she's very, in that moment, she's coming off very condescending and very full of herself. But when you understand, again, like you brought up, what she's up against, having to prove to everyone that she is able to be in and deserves this position, that you kind of understand why she can be snippy and, short with people and even downright mean.
I can understand that very much as a woman, even in this day and age, because I have been told that I don't understand things because I'm young.
Right.
And I have been told that people like to say, because you're young. And it is the most aggravating thing that you can say to me. It makes me want to deck you.
Well, you just said it.
So, like, I'm going to deck you.
I'd like to see you do it through the microphone. Anyway, I'm kidding.
But, yeah, I definitely get where Nynaeve is coming from.
Right.
I think that's why she's become my favorite character. Because I can definitely put myself in her shoes.
Well, even right out the gate, you've got some depth to Nynaeve. And a lot of people would not think to hone in on Nynaeve in this particular chapter, because the chapter itself is about this emergence of Tom Merrilin, the Gleeman. But if you take the Gleeman's comments, Nynaeve's comments, and you kind of just watch the whole scene unfold, this is kind of a commentary on Nynaeve. Not the whole chapter, but there's also a great part of it that is.
What Senbui says about how she needs a husband. Like, she needs a husband to settle her down.
Right.
And I'm like, that's pretty sexist, especially since she's a wisdom. She's got her stuff together. She doesn't need anybody else.
Well,
she is a whole person by herself, and she is strong and independent. She doesn't need it.
I think it's interesting to note also that you have certain characters saying certain things about her, and then you have, in my opinion, the wiser of the characters, the more upstanding of the leaders in Emond's Field, not really saying anything to that effect about Nynaeve, even when she's insulting everyone, and that is, Bran al'Vere and Tam al'Thor.
Yeah, and Master Luhan.
And Master Luhan, right. And that's what I'm saying.
They're probably
I feel like a lot of people early on attach Nynaeve with a bad rap because she does insult the entire council, probably on the words, or because of the words of one or two of them instead of all of them. Because we know, like we just named them, that Master Luhan, Tam al'Thor, and Bran al'Vere aren't saying these things toward her.
I can see her point, kind of, though, because they were wanting to talk about this war in Ghealdan, and she's like, why would you be worrying about that? Like, that's not important right now. Right now, they're worrying about the long winter and the fact that they can't get crops in the ground and stuff like that. She's like, you need to, and about the wolves, because the wolves have been mentioned, that have been coming down out of the mountains and stuff and have been killing not only sheep, but also people. So you have to, in her head, she's like, you are wasting time talking about this whenever you could be setting your mind towards problems that we actually have. And she pretty much says
that. And that's a good point, but I guess I have to see it from the other side too, which is it's winter night. You're not going to figure those things out that night, but you are brought other news that's potentially troubling from someone who only comes around this time of year. So obviously, you're going to seize the opportunity to get everything you can out of the guy.
And like Tam said, they had already made their decision about what to do, but they wanted to make sure that the village understood that they took their worries under consideration.
Right.
Which I did note in my notes.
Right.
But yeah, I can see both sides. But I definitely identify with Nynaeve, is what I'm saying.
Right. And
but yeah,
I'm the same way. I can see why she's doing that. And, especially when it comes to all of these different things, you could point at examples on either side, and either side being Nynaeve's actions versus some of the actions of the others, particularly Simbui, and I guess we could throw Tom in there, even though he's not a village council member. We can throw him in there for his comments. She's just kind of wired at this point to be on the defense and to be, I guess, I don't think she ever means to undermine decisions, but to come up beside these decisions and say, I don't think this is right, as someone who's supposed to be a fellow leader, because in the structure of the town, she is from what I can gather, she is the equal of the mayor. Like her and the mayor run the town.
At least very close. She's pretty much the mayor is the leader of the village council, and the wisdom, from what I understand, is the leader of the women's circle.
Right. And that's what I'm saying is when they go back and forth between these two different types of government, these two different, really they're both councils. These two different councils, both of them have a head. Nynaeve is the head of the women's circle, and Bran is the head of the village council, and they both oversee certain things and certain affairs in the town. So in essence, yeah, the two people that should be holding conference the most should be Nynaeve and Bran.
Yeah, I would think so too.
And that's probably one of the things that ticked her off too, was if these things are so important, why is she not being included? Even though a lot of times, people are told men don't discuss that, that's women's circle business, and so on and so forth. But I feel like in that moment, Nynaeve says, wait a minute, hang on. I need to go in here and check this out, because I am pretty much the other half of the leadership in this town, and I need to make sure that that half of the leadership is doing the right thing. So that's why she storms in there. And I don't know if anyone notices, they don't throw her out.
No, they let her stay. Well, I don't think that Nynaeve would let them throw her out.
That's fair, but they don't even try, and they don't even. In fact, they don't even say anything. If I remember right, I could be remembering wrong. I don't even think they say anything to the effect of "you shouldn't be here," or at least we don't see that. It might have happened when she went in there, but we don't see that.
Yeah, we don't see them ever argue about that or say that she shouldn't be there or anything. Right. We just see her. We understand that she told Tom to get out, and that's the only thing that we hear about from inside the inn. Also, that she told the village council that they don't have a set of wits between them.
Right. So forget Reflections on the Gleeman. The chapter of the Gleeman was really about Nynaeve. At least in our discussion. Okay.
I got very passionate about it.
That's why we do this. So I guess, do you have any other thoughts concerning chapter 4, Thorne?
I am done. I think it's time for us to get to your chapter.
Okay, cool. Chapter 5, Winternight. So this is where it all starts to hit the fan, folks. This is the hook, I think. If you liked the prologue and got hooked by the prologue, then you get glued by this chapter. So at the end of chapter 4, Tam and Rand are headed back to their farm. Tam doesn't really give any indication as to why they're headed back on Winternight. This is seen as something. I'm getting
sorry on chapter 4. Sorry, he did say that he wanted to check out to make sure everything was okay because of the Black Rider.
Well, I was actually working into that because I said that to say that's what he says, but it's out of the ordinary. So we don't know at the start if that's a pretext for something else or if it's the legitimate reason at the end of chapter 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let me talk. So anyway, but Tam and Rand return to their farmhouse, and yes, they are looking for any signs of anyone that's been there, specifically the Black Cloak Rider. They're looking all over the place. Tam even checks the water from the well. They don't find anything, so they go about the few chores they need to do before sunset, and then they kind of settle down to have some supper. When they kind of settle in, Tam pulls out a sword from an old chest of his, and which is just shocking to Rand, and that's something I'm going to mention in a minute. And he tells Rand that he got it a long time ago, and it was not worth much, and that he paid too much for it, and that at the time, Rand's mother definitely did not approve. So Tam also tells Rand that he thought of giving it away, and it's not much use for herding sheep, plowing a field, or harvesting a crop. Tam wants to have the sword should their luck change. So this Black Cloak Rider has really spooked even someone like Tam Althor. Rand makes the observation that the sword looks a lot like Lan's sword, except that Tam's is decorated with herons. If you're a first-time reader and you're not very much farther in the books, remember that. The only people Rand had ever seen with swords before were merchants' guards and, of course, Lan. So the fact that his father even had one was a pretty big surprise. So while they're about to settle down and have some supper, they hear this noise at the door, and Trollocs, first appearance of Trollocs in the series, burst through the front door. So Tam's got the sword, luckily, and it begins fighting off the beast with the sword and tells Rand to escape out the back of the house. So he slips out a window while more Trollocs break down the back door, and Rand escapes into the barn while Tam jumps out a window and leads the monsters away from the home and from Rand. Rand then sneaks into the woods, and that's where he and Tam get reunited. But when they get back together, Tam is seen to be injured, and Rand can tell that he's burning up with a fever. Tam's able to explain the little bit he knows about Trollocs, and that they can see better than a man in the dark, but that very bright lights blind them for a short amount of time. Some can track by scent or sound, and that a lot of them are pretty lazy, so if they kind of step out of the way and stay away from them, they'll eventually give up. Tam tells Rand... Go ahead.
He seems to know a lot for a shepherd.
Well, you get some books. You get some... You can read some books, and there's also the fact of... peddlers coming and telling things, and then Gleeman's tales. So we don't know exactly.
Well, he seems to know, he seems to be saying this stuff as facts in this part. Well, and I just wanted to point that out.
Well, in this case, it might as well be fact, because up until when their door broke down, Rand didn't think Trollocs existed. So there's that.
Good point. I just wanted to point it out.
So Tam continues this spill of knowledge that he tells Rand that Trollocs will kill for the pleasure of killing, and they can't be trusted unless they're afraid of you, and you still can't trust them then. So Rand is beginning to see the need to get Tam back to Emmons Field and get to Nynaeve in order to help with the growing fever. He takes Tam's sword and he goes to the farmhouse, and he's trying to gather blankets, clothes, and get a cart ready, and get Bella and all of that hooked up together to get back to the town. Rand, he goes in, he sees all this carnage. There's tons of Trollocs dead, and he finds one Trolloc by the name of Narg still alive in the house. Rand's
Narg smart.
Narg no kill. Narg no hurt. Rand is
Narg no hurt. Narg bring you to murder.
I have to say, listen to my wife read that out loud was delightful. So anyway, Rand is pretty frightened, and he holds the sword up in defense, and Narg asks him repeatedly to lower the sword, that he only wants to talk, and he's talking in the way that we just spoke. Narg no hurt. Narg don't want talk murdraw. Just very broken. I don't know if you could call it English, but very broken language, and that the murdraw wants to talk to him. And after a little while, Rand lowers his sword, and as he lowers the sword, the Trolloc lunges at him, but Rand brings the blade up and manages to kill it in self-defense. So he gets over that ordeal, he gathers what he needs from the house, and he goes to the barn, and he discovers that Bella is gone and the cart is broken. So that sucks. So Rand uses the sword to cut shafts from the cart so he can carry Tam, and he's surprised that the sword is still razor sharp after everything that's been used for. And when he tests the blade after seeing that, he actually cuts himself. So it's a pretty daggum sharp sword. And then
It's a sword that can cut through wood, through hard aged wood, and not lose
edge.
its edge. Like even a good axe would lose its edge after cutting
Right.
through
So this
that.
sword is no joke.
No joke. No children's toy.
So at the very end of the chapter, Rand gets to the woods and he starts tending to Tam and getting Tam ready to move and try to get back to Emmons Field. So obviously, we're not going to have
the end of the chapter.
Yeah, see, that's the summary I'm reading. That's where it ends.
Hold on. Let me. I gotta look now, because I feel like it gets much further than that.
Well, I can tell you because I actually have it up right here. Yeah, the very last couple lines of chapter 5 is that thought was like a beacon as he pulled on his coat and bent to tend Tam's wound. They would be safe once they reached the village, and Nynaeve would cure Tam. He just had to get him there. So he was prepping Tam to move.
Okay.
Because there were chapters in between where it was kind of showing them getting through the woods and trying to avoid any other confrontations.
Oh, don't spoil.
It's not a spoiler. I mean, that's kind of everybody kind of knows what's about to happen. Is they're about to go back to town.
Yeah, they're about to start trying to get through the woods. And that's all.
We're not going to tell you guys if anything happens in the woods. We're just letting you know that's kind of a duh that they're about to go back into the woods. So, a few things that I wanted to point out from Winternight. Obviously, there's a lot we could really drill down on. We don't have time to do all of it, but there's a couple things that I wanted to remark upon concerning really how Robert Jordan kind of wrote this chapter. So when we get back to the farm, you do get this scene where when you first read it, if you're not really paying attention, it's just a typical farm scene. They go back to the farm, they do farm things, and then they're getting ready.
I kind of like how they I kind of like how he describes everything and lets people know like what their daily lives are kind of like.
Right. But he also, in the midst of that, in the midst of the mundane things, the routine things, he uses the routine to show how things are actually not that great. Because there's a particular line here, I've got it highlighted. It says, not everything had been planted, of course, only in part, in hopes that the cold might break in time to make a crop of some kind before the cellar was empty. It did not take long to finish hoeing, which would have suited him just fine in years past, but now he wondered what they would do if nothing came up this year. Not a pleasant thought. And still, there was still firewood to split. And then he says this, and this is what really drives it home. It seemed to Rand like years since there had not been firewood to split, really remarking on how long this winter has lasted, because he's gotten so used to chopping firewood, he can't remember when he didn't chop firewood for use in the house to stay warm and things of that nature. So the scene gets kind of set, like, okay, they're coming back to this farm, and it's a quaint farm. It's a normal farm, so to speak, but it too, as everyone who's been speaking in Emmons Field has, been saying, it too has been affected by the long winter. Something that we kind of see right after that is we kind of get the inside of the house. We get a scene of the inside of the house. And a lot of people, I tell first time, I say first time readers like I've read this a million times. I've only read it through once. This is technically my second read through. But I have told people who have been getting to the wheel of time, like my wife, that Robert Jordan does do a lot of description, but a lot of times his description has a very specific purpose. And this is no exception, because a lot of people would read through this, and if they don't really know that or haven't slowed down enough to see that, they're not going to catch these things. So another thing that I caught going back through it was the scene that Robert Jordan set inside of the Althor homestead, inside the actual house. And you can see how it's adorned. You can tell that men live there, but it's not like the, unkempt, cluttered, unorganized, of a couple of
Bachelor
right.
patch.
It's still a clean, neat, but rustic place to live. Um,
A little bit lived in. I think they mentioned like a couple shirts were tossed over a chair and stuff like that, but nothing major.
he also makes a note about how the house doesn't feel quite full because Rand's mother used to live there, and of course Rand's mother's died. So, that is a thing that kind of is in the house. Is you can tell that someone else used to live here by the space that they share. Um, but a lot of it, the thing that I noticed pretty quickly is two things. Number one, that both of them read and neither of them have a lot of books. And we figure out that from this and from, of course, the chapter about the peddler, everyone in this town, or a lot of people in this town, they really enjoy books. Books are popular, but they are hard to come by in this area. So they have pretty much just a few. They might get one new one every so often, but a lot of times it's not something that they get new stuff. And there's well-worn books that have been read multiple times. Of course, one of the main books that everyone seems to read in this series is The Travels of Jane Farstrider, which is something that Rand has actually remarked and said that it was his favorite. But there was one other thing that Robert Jordan did, and he did it just before, if you'll, excuse the turn of phrase, just before all hell broke loose. And that was this. It said, let me find the right spot to start reading. Okay. So, I'll just read this paragraph. So it says, if the room, talking about the main common living room type area in the house, says, if the room did not look quite so freshly scrubbed as most farm wives kept their homes, Tam's pipe rack and The Travels of Jane Farstrider sat on the table while another wood-bound book rested on the cushion of his reading chair. So that's that what you mentioned earlier, Thorne, is kind of lived in. A bit of harness to be mended lay on the bench by the fireplace, and some shirts, like you mentioned, to be darned made a heap on a chair. If not quite so spotless, it was still clean and neat enough, with a lived-in look that was almost as warming and comforting as the fire. This is where I really want us to pick out this next idea. Here it was possible to forget the chill beyond the walls. There was no false dragon here, no wars or Aes Sedai, no men in black cloaks. The aroma from the stew pot hanging over the fire permeated the room and filled Rand with ravenous hunger. In other words, this was home, and this is the safe place. And
you definitely get the vibe of home out of this whole description.
And now, having read through the synopsis and, of course, read this chapter and looking back at that, Robert Jordan setting that up to be shattered. Because all of Tam and Rand's cares are outside the walls. They locked the door, which is not something they do very often in the Two Rivers, but Tam locked the door and got his sword. But that's fine. Everything's fine. No big deal. And when Tam locks the door, which is right after what I just read, Rand kind of gives him a look, and Tam just says, well, it's best to be safe. We're just going to take a precaution. And then, then we find that he goes upstairs and comes back down with a sword. And he says, Tam says a little bit later, he says, but if I'm not just taken by a black fancy, and if our luck runs sour, maybe in the next few days, we'll be glad I tucked the sword, in that old chest instead. And the instead is in reference to instead of giving it away, which he remarks that his wife wanted him to do. So I lean into all that because I feel like a lot of people, when they talk about this chapter, will obviously go to the attack. They'll go to Narg, which is all great, But to me, the real work in this chapter was the lead into that, because he's setting this scene that was completely and totally meant to be completely broken and shattered. And to me, at the risk of sounding spoilerish with no spoiler facts, no, nothing crazy. This is, to me, he set that up and shattered it, because this is essentially oh my God, I lost the word. This is essentially
destruction of innocence.
What?
Destruction of innocence.
Well, I wasn't going to say that necessarily, but it's just, this is where Rand's world gets turned upside down, where everything he knows and has known is shattered, because from this moment on, his life is never the same.
I want somebody to make a song about Eye of the World, but to the tune of French Prince of Bel Air.
I really don't know how I feel about that. I do not know how I feel about that. I mean, I see the
The world
concept.
turned upside down
I see the concept.
is what
Yeah,
my
the concept could
brain.
work. I just, I don't know. Andrew, other content creators on Twitter of Time, if you're listening, get on this.
Please,
Get
Angel.
on this now. Um,
Angel is so good at singing. I want him to do it.
oh, for sure, absolutely. But that's kind of the thing that I really wanted to pull out of this here is, like I said, a lot of people, and rightly so, because that's the main thing that happens in this chapter is from here on, right after, right after they say this stuff and they get ready to sit down with some stew, they get attacked. The door that is locked is busted open. They have to escape out the back. Rand's being assaulted by these things he's never seen. His father gets hurt, and his home is attacked. The inside destroyed. Other things about the property are destroyed, and then he has to figure out at the end of the chapter how to basically stabilize his father, and essentially because the cart and the horse are gone, cart broken, horse gone. Essentially, make something and without a better term for it, drag his father all the way back to Emmons Field, which is a far enough trip on foot as it is. Um, so his whole world just gets completely and totally turned upside down and completely shattered and changed. And I feel like Robert Jordan took the time to set all of that up to talk about what the homestead looked like, how it was lived in, what the outdoors did there, and that it was essentially the safe place for the outdoors, the place of comfort, home. It was home. How home, representing things as they were, gets completely shattered, and then from that night forward, Rand is thrown into this, well, for lack of a better way to put it, well,
Spoiler.
I was going to say 14-book adventure. you know,
True,
I mean,
valid.
because and you can tell, especially if you've read any other type of book, some type of confrontation happens in the beginning of these types of books, and it sets the plot forward. So it's not really a spoiler to say that things take off at and after this chapter, because we've had 4 chapters of setup, and now it's time to push the plot forward. So with this attack, obviously, and the thing about it is, it's also common sense too. If your home was attacked by these disgusting man beast creatures that are huge and don't really speak English, and they come in with swords and axes and chainmail, and they stink and they smell like death, and they just bust your door down and attack you. Even if that's the only thing that happened to Rand, that would still change his life. That's still a pretty big deal. It's like, oh, these things that I thought were
Yeah.
fake are in my house attacking me.
Yeah,
And he
for
can't just
sure.
yell, "You're not real, you're not here," and wake up and everything's fine. No, these suckers have come to kill him and his father, and they don't know why.
I see you.
And they don't even know. And it's like I said, Rand didn't even think these things actually existed until they busted down his door. And then, of course, it's like you pointed out earlier. It's like Tam's like, I know a little bit about Trollocs, and then he starts spilling his guts about Trollocs. And then I can just tell you right now, Rand's like, what? What do you mean? How do you know all this? Who are you? Like, just kind of like, what else do you not know? You pull this blade out? Like, so there's a lot happening. Um, there's a
Yeah.
whole lot happening, and it just continues to go from there. But that was really the main thing I wanted to pull out of this chapter. I mean, like I said, we could do a whole episode on this chapter if we really wanted to. But that's the main thing I really wanted to pull out of this chapter, was the fact that more than anything else so far in this book, and maybe in the first half of this book, this chapter is singularly responsible for setting I would say, the Wheel of Time adventure forward. That other things were in
Yeah.
place, yes, but if you pointed back to a decisive moment when the adventure started, when the whole ordeal began, you have to go back to that Winternight. You have to go back there, because if Winternight did not happen the way it happened, I personally think there would have been no story after that.
Well, yeah.
So then that's my thoughts on Winternight. Do you have any additional thoughts, Thorne?
I think you pretty much covered it. I mean, there's not much to say because the fight all happened mostly off screen.
Mm-hmm. And that's true.
And we specifically talked about Narg.
Right.
So
Narg no hurt.
Don't forget to follow the Daily Trolloc on Twitter.
Yes, there is an account called Narg. Go follow
it. Okay, so I guess it's time to do our Twitter of Time segment. Narg is not part of our Twitter of Time segment. I just kind of
if we had the money to do all kinds of special effects and professional editing, we would have like a little jingle play here for our Twitter of Time segment. So, yeah, pretend, because that's happening right now.
I could totally... No, I'm not doing it. I could say I could sing it.
No. You don't have to do that, unless you just want
to. Twitter of Time.
We'll work on it. So, who and or...
I might edit that out. We'll see.
So, who and or what are we highlighting from Twitter of Time this week, Thorne?
Okay, so every week on Tuesday, Sarah Nakamura starts a thing called the Wheel of Time Dance Party. So basically what it is Sarah Nakamura starts tagging everybody, and everybody posts dancing GIFs all day.
All day.
And
guys, all day.
Yes.
I get tagged in it. I think I get tagged in it with my Randall Thor account, and I'm at work.
Your phone
my phone absolutely explodes. It goes off every few minutes, and I'm like, what is it? And then like as I turn to look at the blinking notification on my phone, every Tuesday, it hits me on Tuesday. Oh crap, it's Tuesday. It's probably Wheel of Time Dance Party. And then I sneak a look at my phone at work, and yes, it's like 800 gifts from Wheel of Time Dance Party.
Yeah.
So, which is awesome, but I can't look at them all because I'm at work, so I have to catch up at night.
Oh, I've got a comment on this one. Sorry, I'm looking at the Twitter of Time actual post. Oh no, I'm going to do it on my account. I just want to make a comment at Zane. But so yeah, there's some people who do it every week for sure. There's Malkir's King. Malkir's King. He's a Major Lan account. And
this dude's a G, okay? Because everybody else posts up these little pre-made GIFs. This dude puts up videos of him actually dancing.
Yeah, and then he also did that one where he was in ice, like legit ice.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Like outside
that was
ice.
Totally crazy. He and... Is it the Doomseer Min Farshaw account? They both do like actual dances. And I can't remember.
Also, Zane does a dance usually every week, or he'll do like a weapon thing.
Does a lot of sword
also,
play.
Sometimes Lan does the weapon things too.
Yeah.
And also, Reed will dance. And I think that Moradin, Ronin Comics, he does a song. He sings.
He's also done monologues before. Like one time he did...
That's funny.
The Joker from The Killing Joke, which was pretty dang good.
Was that for Wheel of Time Dance Party, or was just that?
It was Wheel of Time Dance Party, I believe. Morden, if I'm wrong about that, add us and let us know. I think it was because everyone was like sharing their songs and the dances and the different gifts, and then he's just like, well, I don't have a song today, but I have this, and he did it. But he has sung before, and so has the Andrew Genhold account.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah, Andrew's amazing. Andrew is super talented. He has been doing songs. He's done a song for the White Tower, and he is apparently working on a song for the Black Tower, and he's very talented.
Everyone, listen to us, download us, get us popular enough that we can justify asking Andrew to make us a song. Okay, thanks, bye. Go and do. Go follow. And get your friends. Invite them all. It's a good time. But yeah,
so anyways.
Yeah. So I think that's that's a kind of a highlight for Twitter of Time this week. And if you don't know of a lot of people or accounts to follow in Twitter of Time, honestly, every Tuesday, if you just look for the hashtag WOT Dance Party, just about every active account, if not every active account, because I miss it some weeks, I'll be honest, but just about
I miss
just
it a
about
lot.
every active account that you want to follow is going to be somewhere in the multiple threads of dancing gifts that is Wheel of Time Dance Party. And also, you can contribute to it yourself. I mean, the more the merrier. Sarah has always said she really wants it to be trending every Tuesday. I think we've gotten pretty close, if not actually made it trending. But needless to say, we really want, the more the merrier, and the more people share the hashtag, the more likely we will be trending on Tuesdays for that.
And yeah, Twitter of Time is amazing too, because there was that time that they had a poll. Amazon put up a poll about the upcoming book to TV adaptations, and one of the choices was Wheel of Time, and Twitter of
Took it
Time
down.
ended up Sarah started a Wheel of Time dance party in the comments. It was
It was
absolutely
anarchy, man.
glorious.
It wasn't
And
even Tuesday. Like, come on. It was just, all over the place.
I think it was a Saturday or
It was
something.
something like that. And I think we talked about this a little bit on episode 1, but yeah, it was pretty crazy because, you know, honestly, if you looked at the choices, the deck was kind of stacked because it was Lord of the Rings, which is this mega titan in the fantasy genre with good reason. And then you had The Expanse, which was already 2 seasons deep and coming out with a third, I believe, because it had been moved.
I heard
It
it's
is really good.
really good
I
too.
think I've seen the first season all the way through. I think I started the second, haven't finished it, but it was very good. It started on Sci-Fi. Sci-Fi cut it. It moved to Amazon Prime, based on the book series of the same name, the Sci-Fi, a space opera, if you will. But and then the other choice was something I'm currently watching, which is Good Omens. Which, guys, if you haven't watched it and you like satire and a little bit of absurdism and just good acting, all around good writing, good humor, and fantasy, watch Good Omens. I mean, guys, it's so good. It's so British. It's so good. Like, it is super. I love it. And
But
anyway, so
anyway,
that's a quick shameless plug for something else. But coming back to us, um, but yes,
got a little bit off
tune in
topic there.
every Tuesday on Twitter of Time to the Wheel of Time Dance Party. You will not regret it, even if you don't want to be part of it. It is a sight to behold. So definitely get in on that and pick some accounts out that you've never followed, and go ahead and follow them. Just go ahead and do that and make it happen.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we're winding down here, and as we have been doing, we are going to roll a die. I'm going to do the honors this week to see who gets which chapters this coming week. So actually, in order to be informed, I'm going to pull up the table of contents on my Kindle real quick, and I am going to see which 2 chapters are next. If you'll give me
All
just a
right.
second, I can get to it.
I didn't even check either.
Listen how prepared we are.
I did very good until this point.
Usually Thorne's the one that does the gets the notes together
Okay.
and everything like that. Yeah, and
Chapter 6 is the Westwood, and chapter 7 is Out of the Woods.
Okay, so with that, Thorne, are we doing high, low, or odds, evens? I have a D20.
Let's do odds, evens, and I want odds.
Okay, I win.
Aw.
I rolled a 16.
Well, I don't know which one I want anyway, so.
Okay, that's fine. I'll take was it Out of the Woods?
Okay, so you're doing chapter 7, and I'll do chapter 6.
Now, to be clear to everyone, this is for episode 6, because episode 5 is our Daniel Greene special topic episode, which will be next week, and we're so excited for that to happen. But we are rolling now for episode 6, because when we get to episode 5, it's going to be all about talking about these different things with Daniel and gearing everything toward that end. So we just want to make sure to go ahead and roll the die tonight and assign the chapters. So Thorne will be taking chapter 6. I'll be taking chapter 7. and we will reconvene on that with episode 6. So as we wrap everything up, Thorne, how can everyone find us and get a hold of this if they want to correct us on how wrong we've been concerning a lot of our opinions and facts concerning Wheel of Time?
So you can follow us on Twitter at OnePowerPod, and you can also follow us on Facebook or like us on Facebook. It's also at OnePowerPod. We also have an email, onepowerpod@gmail.com. I think that's all we've got so far.
That's all we have so far, but we may expand. We are working on several different things. We'll announce them as it becomes relevant. But yeah, so be sure to follow us. Recommend us to your friends, especially if your friends are Wheel of Time fans. If they're not Wheel of Time fans, I don't suggest recommending us to them because we have nothing for them. So yes, your Wheel of Time friends.
I know nothing other than Wheel of Time. That's pretty much my whole life.
I don't know whether to congratulate you or play the world's smallest violin. So in the interest of deference, I will do neither. But in any case, check us out, Twitter and Facebook. Email us if you've got any questions or any suggestions. We are open to suggestions. You can use those platforms to give us those suggestions as well. But as we wrap
and don't forget our new hashtag, Explain Jokes to Thorne.
Yes, please explain jokes to Thorne. Please. Guys, I need help. Please. So, anyway, wrapping everything up, just remember, guys, that the wheel weaves as the wheel wills, and my name is Greg.
And I'm Thorne.
And we will catch you next time.
Bye.